Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So this morning I was reading a very disturbing story about an incident that happened at a museum. At the National Museum of African American History and Culture, a noose was found in an exhibit on segregation. And 4 days before that, another noose was found in front of another museum, outside of another museum. And there have been other incidents of nooses being found. I will include a link to a story that cites those various incidents. I mean, we all know the history of lynching in this country. There was a time when black people could be lynched for any reason at all, and there would be no justice. Black people would be strung up in trees, and they would be the strange fruit that Billie Holiday sung about. Hanging from trees, lynched. They would lynch groups of black people in some cases. And they would view these events, these horrific crimes, as some kind of sporting event. They would gather the men, the women, and children. And in a lot of those photos from back in that day, they would be smiling at the thought of a black person losing their life. As a black body was hanging from trees, or black bodies hanging from trees, you had these savages, these white savages, smiling, enjoying themselves like they were at a baseball game or some other kind of sporting event. They were amused and entertained and overjoyed at the death of black people. That's the history of lynching in this country. We all remember the case of Emmett Till, a young brother who was lynched simply for looking at a white woman or whistling at a white woman. You know, that's the allegation. Now, the brother wasn't hung up in a tree, but he was beaten beyond recognition, beaten brutally and thrown in a river. That's the history of lynching in this country. But yet you have somebody that wants to intimidate, somebody that wants to express their hatred by hanging this noose in a museum that's supposed to celebrate African American history. And this comes at a time when you have hate crimes going on in this country. I mean, you heard about this man who stabbed and killed 3 people. He stabbed 3 people and killed 2 of them. You heard about that case. You heard about the case where the man stabbed a black student at the University of Maryland. You heard about the case where white supremacists from Baltimore went all the way to New York City and killed a random black man and planned on killing more black people. We heard about those situations. These are some frightening times, man. You know, this is a frightening climate we live in right now. I mean, we live in a time when you have white supremacists openly protesting, white supremacists holding protests bearing torches, white supremacists lighting crosses, burning crosses in Pennsylvania. This comes at a time when you have actual politicians in places like Louisiana actually talking about lynching other politicians or other people simply for calling for the removal of racist Confederate statues. This is the time in which we live. We live in a time where you have a white supremacist in the White House. You have a white supremacist as the chief political strategist for the President of the United States. These are the times that we live in. And I think that those nooses, that noose in particular that was hung in the African American Museum, is nothing but a sign of the times. We live in a time where the police kill black people with impunity, take our lives, no justice in sight. Many times these police, these damn pigs, kill black people and they're not even charged with anything. That brother, Eric Garner, for all intents and purposes, was lynched live on camera, choked to death by New York's finest. Choked to death on camera, no charges filed. That is the America in which we live. And again, that noose in that museum is nothing but a sign of the times.